Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I hope you are doing well. My job in this live is to take a look at Iris Energy and figure out why the heck has it halved in price in the last 5 trading days. So February 20th, this stock was trading at close to uh, $13.50, and now it's $7.86. Actually, after hours, it's up a bit, $7.91, but sub $8. So what the heck happened here? It's the second halving here, except not for Bitcoin, but for the Bitcoin miners. So Iris Energy, what is going on here? Should we sell? Does something reveal itself that exposes the irrational exuberance that we previously held for this stock? Fear not, I'm going to do what I always advise everyone to do when they're feeling panic about a certain asset that they're invested in, and that is to sit down, put the numbers in front of you, figure out what is a reasonable valuation for the stock or asset, whatever it is, and ignore the noise that is coming from the market. Because over time, what's going to win out is the fundamentals for any asset. Remember, in the short term, the market is a voting machine. In the long term, it is a weighing machine, and the weight will set you free. So let's look at Iris Energy. I'm going to go through my calculation that I did today with regards to Iris Energy. So Iris Energy, for those who are not familiar, is a Bitcoin miner, and they also, like pretty much all Bitcoin miners now, have a play on AI high performance computing, although it currently contributes a very small number to its bottom line. So their main assets are 31 exahash of Bitcoin mining, which is installed, and they're trying to get to 50 by the end of the first half of 2025. They have much grander goals after that. They also have 2,300 of megawatts of grid connected power, so different locations globally, and it is connected to the grid to the tune of 2,300 megawatts. Now, let's look at its last quarter and see if we can make a reasonable valuation for this stock per share. So revenue in the last quarter was 120 million. 113 of that came from Bitcoin mining. The rest came from AI cloud stuff. Adjusted EBITDA, so that's earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, amortization, that was 62.6 million or 52.3% margin. Now you annualize that, you come out with 250 million in EBITDA. The net profit was 20 million or 19 million, which was a very good improvement versus the 51 million loss that it incurred in the quarter right before it. So you can get a feel of how aggressively this company is growing. Cash is 427 million, and they do have convertible notes in terms of liabilities. Shares outstanding is 220 million. The hash rate that was operating in the last quarter, so the average operating hash rate, remember I said they reached 31 exahash in mining power last quarter, but they were installing that last quarter. It wasn't all running last quarter. What was running on average last quarter was 22.6 exahash. And their average cost for electricity to mine every one Bitcoin is $21,000. So in terms of the main cost, if you exclude the depreciation of the mining rigs themselves, the main cost for each Bitcoin that it mines, the electricity, is $21,400. Average realized price for the Bitcoin that it mined in the latest quarter, it says Q2 here, but this is Q2 of its fiscal year, which ends in December last year. So Q2 is Q4 on the calendar year. So their average realized price for Bitcoin sold last quarter was 84,000. Now, in my future estimates for the purposes of this valuation, I'm going to assume a price per Bitcoin of 100,000, even though I have a price target for Bitcoin of 200,000 by the end of this year. But I'm going to use 100,000 because this is going to be my margin of error. I'm fairly certain, inshallah, that Bitcoin is going to be way above that price by the end of the year. But I'm going to use 100,000 in order to give me a margin of error in my valuation. Now, capex for last quarter was around 139 million, and that included around 25 million in NVIDIA GPUs, which should help its high performance computing business. Salam Rashad, nice to see you. Salam Salman, nice to see you. All right, so let's go to where the rubber meets the road, the future cash flows. As I said, the value of any business is the present value of its future cash flows. It's not rocket science, folks. All you have to do is figure out what are the future cash flows for their business and discount those future cash flows to present day terms using an appropriate discount rate, and you have a value for the business. So so at 50 exahash, which is the target by the end of by the end of Q2, so mid this year, at 50 exahash, let's assume 50 exahash, by the way, is twice as high as the average operating hash rate of last quarter. At 50 exahash, let's assume that they're mining twice as many Bitcoin. I understand the network difficulty may change. I understand that. So it may not be exactly 2 times the amount of Bitcoin in the last quarter, but recall that I've assumed 100,000 price for Bitcoin. So that should, and also understand that they're not stopping at 50 exahash. 50 exahash is where they are at mid 2025. They will grow beyond that in the second half of 2025. So I think a 2x output of Bitcoin is reasonable. And so we're talking around 2,700 Bitcoin quarterly at full capacity. And at 100,000 per Bitcoin, you have around 270 million per quarter that is generated from their Bitcoin mine in revenue from their Bitcoin mining, which comes out to around 1.077 million annualized. And their AI or high performance compute business, that generated 2.7 million in the last quarter. But as you saw from their purchase of NVIDIA chips, as you saw from their purchase of different sites, Horizon 1 with 75 megawatts, GPU investments, this is forecasted to grow substantially. And let's assume it grows from 2.7 million to 10 million by the end of this year, which is just a fraction of the capacity that this company has for this business. Keep in mind, we mentioned at the top, one of its biggest assets was 2,300 megawatts of grid-connected power. So let's assume that they get to 10 million per quarter by the end of the year. Annualize that, that's 40 million per year. So now the total revenue, take the Bitcoin revenue, add it to the high performance computing revenue, that's 1.117 billion. And so the EBITDA margin for Q2 was 52.3, as I said. Let's assume that it falls to 50%. Now, that means that in terms of EBITDA, we just have to have the revenue that we forecasted for 2025. So that comes out to 558 million. Now, there's going to be a lot of capital expenditures, obviously. And I assume that CapEx remained high because they do have a lot of expansion planned. So at 100 million CapEx per quarter, which was roughly what it was last quarter, come out to 400 million annualized. And so the free cash flow for this business is around 158 million uh, by the end of this year. So that is the free cash flow. And that's what we're going to use when we're calculating the present value of the business. And we're going to assume, obviously, that this free cash flow is growing every year. I assumed that the free cash flow was going to grow at roughly the rate at which uh, the long term rate that is expected for Bitcoin's growth. So at 26% growth, we go from 158 to 200, and then dropped it to 20% the year after that, and 20% the year after that. So we go 158, 200, 250, 300, 350, and then we have the perpetual growth rate at 3%. So let's say that that's where the business stabilizes at in 5 years. That's how much it's going to grow. Although I think that's probably conservative. But if we are to value the business 5 years from now, it comes at 4 billion, around 4 billion. The cash flows that are going to come after that. So I'm going kind of quickly. This is probably something that is familiar to me, not necessarily familiar to everyone watching. But if you get the gist of what I'm saying, I think this is. I sometimes forget that I went through the CFA program, and so this is something I've done many times, and I've been investing for a long time. So this is like second nature to me. Sorry if I'm going very quickly, but if you can get the gist of what I'm saying, I think it will be useful. So, um, so we bring back the terminal value of the business along with the cash flows in the next 5 years to today's terms using a discount rate, which is unchanged basically from what it is today, reflecting the risk that's involved in the business at 12%. And now we have um, a discounted cash flow for each one of the cash flows for the next 5 years, including the terminal value of the company, and we can add them up. And if we add them up, the total enterprise value is 3.141 million, so around 3 billion. And the net, to account for the cash, they do have 427 million in cash minus the convertible notes that they have. That's around 100 million, 110 million in net cash. Add that to the enterprise value to get our equity value. That's around 3.250 billion. So that is the value of the business today based on these assumptions. Now, keep in mind, I assumed a Bitcoin price from here to the end of the year of 100,000. Even though my actual target for Bitcoin is 200,000 by the end of this year. Now, if we divide the 3.2 billion by the 220 million shares outstanding that the company has, we come out to a share price of $14.80. Revisit the price right now at around $7.80, you can see the upside. So with that being said, I'm not really that concerned. Now, this should serve two purposes. Number one, that you don't panic sell, or I should say that I don't panic sell. This is not investment advice. Make sure to do your own due diligence. But also, when you hear people talking about 30, 40, $100 a share, to discount those people's opinions because they haven't done the work of actually valuing the company properly. So I believe that this is a reasonable valuation that I went through right now, and therefore should guide further decisions buying and selling. All right, guys, let's take some questions very quickly. Hannibal, about my Tesla prediction. The target is 50% growth. So I actually don't think yearly. So I actually don't think that. And Tesla, the company, was actually targeting 20 million vehicles by 2030. So I actually don't think 10 million is that optimistic. Okay. 10% tariff on China. What a surprise. Yeah. I think that so for people who are really nervous about tariffs, I think number one, um, there's going to be a lot of exceptions to all tariffs, and I I think a lot of it is for political consumption. I don't think it's going to be, as devastating to the economy as some people may think, and as inflationary as some people may think. And then number two, I also think that there's kind of a Trump put in the market, wherein if the market starts doing badly, Trump really likes watching the market, and so it will inform his policy. And so if the market tanks, doesn't recover, then he will capitulate on tariffs. That I think I am sure of. Algiers is very down, and it's the end of the world to him. Don't watch yourself losing money and hoping that the market will go back up. Okay, my advice would be to ignore those, like, people who are dramatic. Are not really good sources of advice. Sorry, Algiers, throw you under the bus, but that's what I typically, when you're investing, managing your own portfolio, you it's the cooler heads that you want to try and follow and ignore, like, dramatic voices. Mahmoud, nice of you to make it. I'm glad you were able to make it. I do think that it is buy time, and obviously dollar cost average. Colonel Meow, awesome name by the way, and thumbnail. But yeah, I do think it is a good time to buy. Dr. Boss, nice to see you, brother. How long do you expect this drop to last? And with all this uncertainty, when should we expect the bull run to resume? Well, I don't know, obviously, but I have a hunch that March will be better than February, and perhaps it is, sentiment will change in the coming month, as I think we'll rally going into the spring, and we may level out going into summer. I love the new format on how to invest your money. Helps me out a lot. That's great. I'm glad you're finding benefit from it. You can always sell stocks for liquidity, but there is tax implications for that. Zuhair, wa alaikum salam, nice to see you. Salim says, is $20 IRES energy this year a possibility? It would require, I think, either like a really euphoric stage for Bitcoin's price, or a hyperscaler deal. I think that would get it to 20. It's definitely in our buy zone. IRES energy is definitely in our buy zone if you're going by our watch list. Inshallah. Inshallah, I'm also in the process of refreshing our course. So for people who want to do their valuations on their own, video about AMD, inshallah. Which data will Tesla use to train humanoid robots? Well, that's going to I think the concept of using vision for training that it has pioneered with its full self driving is going to come in handy when training the robot. So I think the system is going to be you just show the robot what to do and it learns from there. I think that's like how you would teach a human, basically. I think that's what's going to be the standard. So, very exciting times that we're going into. All right, guys. Thank you all. I hope you found this valuation useful. Leave a like, become a PIF member, all that good stuff. And until next time, make sure to take care of yourself. Assalamu alaikum and peace be upon you all.